Welcome to the Pajera Talks. Today we are going to explore Azure Bastion from the security perspective because this is Security Specialist series. So before we start digging the security aspect of various features that Azure Bastion offers and things related to Azure Bastion, let's simply figure out why we need it first. So let's suppose there is Azure, okay? This is Azure VNet, and we have couple of virtual machines inside it. Okay, and here is your cloud engineer or Azure admin. You can call anyone, whatever you call in your organization. All right, and this guy needs to work on these VMs. Okay, Wh- what I mean is going inside the VM data plane, not the control plane. All right, it could be anyone, uh, Azure admin, or it could be somebody who needs to work on the virtual machine. You can also say admin in simple words. Okay, so this guy may be sitting remotely, okay, or wherever this guy is sitting. It's not in the Azure, of course. He might be using his own laptop, sitting in the office, or working remotely. But this guy needs to access these VMs inside the Azure. This is Azure VNet, right? Now there are multiple ways that this guy can do that. The very first thing is it you may have a jump box here. This guy will jump here and then access it. Or this guy has VPN. So this will simply go through the VPN. Or there is one more thing, simple and sweet. We'll talk in detail though, which is Azure Bastion, which simply means this guy definitely has access to Azure Portal, right? And that too via multi-factor authentication and conditional access applied for security reasons. So once this guy is an Azure Portal, it can simply click on connect on the VM through the Azure Portal via Azure Bastion and can easily connect, skipping all those points that we talked about. So there are multiple ways, and this is the best secure way, recommended way to access the virtual machine through Azure Bastion. All right. So this is very simple. That's how this is going to help us from architecture and security perspective. We are going to dig it deeper. Okay. Now, the very first thing is if you have jump box here, then you need to manage that box, right? You need to take care of the patching, you need to take care of the concurrent connections and things like that. If it is a VPN, you need to make sure if it is a certificate based or client based, you need to take care of other things. But if it is Azure Bastion, then no need to worry about those admin overhead. Why? Because it is a PaaS service. This is PaaS service, very simple, which means it is a fully managed service by Microsoft. And it also provides secure and seamless RDP and SSH access to virtual machine directly through the Azure portal that we already talked about, RDP and SSH. And this bastion, this directly spins up a provision in our virtual network. So, which means uh, we need we need to create a dedicated subnet for Azure Bastion. So it is inside our virtual network, providing additional layer of security by allowing RDP SSH access without exposing the virtual machine to the public internet. So it needs virtual network and dedicated subnet. All right. I'm just getting familiar ourselves with the service because we need to jump into the security aspect of it. Right. So this uh, when you connect, try to connect to this VM via Azure Bastion, it will open into the browser. which is your HTML5. So that's how you connect, and we will show you, or maybe we can go right now, uh, like this. Okay. Oh, it was there. So if you need to type here Bastion, come here. This is your Bastion. Click here, and to click on create. Right. You need to select the resource group. Select the reason, not reason, region. Okay. Name. Call it as something like my Bastion or whatever you like. It has multiple tiers like basic, developer, and standard. You can choose accordingly, and these tiers has their own features. And this is the virtual network I was talking about, and this is this dedicated subnet. So we'll keep on going as we complete the theory part, or maybe we can just hit the. We don't want to waste too much money because we don't want to disable the subscription. So let's go with the basic one. So these are all the information that we filled in, review and create. It's in progress right now. So let's click on create. It's validated. Now, while it's getting created, let's get back and talk about some other key features of this Azure Bastion. So what are the key features of Azure Bastion? The very first thing is no public IP for VMs. That is one of the uh, best security thing or security that it provides. There is no public IP. So virtual machines do not require public IP address to be accessible over RDP or SSH. This minimizes the exposure of your VMs to potential attacks, right? So this is a wonderful thing that we can get when we opt for this service. The second one is secure and seamless connectivity. Okay. How? Because Azure Bastion uses SSL to encrypt the RDP and SSH traffic traveling through the Bastion service to your VMs, ensuring secure communication without the need for any additional VPN. So, secure and seamless connection. Then, integration with Portal, your Azure Portal. So RDP and SSH sessions can be initiated directly from within the Azure Portal using a web browser, as I was saying in the beginning, providing a seamless and integrated management experience. Then scale uh, and availability. How come? Because Azure Bastion is a managed service that we already talked about, which means it automatically scaled and highly available within the region it is deployed in, ensuring consistent service performance and reliability. All right, then we also get detailed logging and auditing capabilities that can be integrated with Azure Monitor and MS Defender for enhanced monitoring and compliance. So, what we can say, remote sessions, logging, and auditing. Right? Then we also get transit connectivity, which means Azure Bastion can be accessed across virtual networks through VNet peering. It also supports connectivity through Azure Express Route or VPN, making it flexible in terms of network architecture. So supports VNet peering. You need not to spin up multiple Bastion for multiple VNets. If they're peered, you can utilize a single Bastion and secure your environment. Now, your VMs are protected against port scanning by rogue and malicious users because you don't need to expose the VM on the internet. So, securing VMs from port scanning or other malicious activities. Azure Bastion also sits in the perimeter of your virtual network, so you don't need to worry about hardening each of the VMs in your virtual network. The Azure platform protects against zero-day exploits by keeping the Bastion hardened and always up to date for you because it is a managed service. So hardening and zero-day exploit, everything is taken care by Microsoft. So these are the features that we get with Azure Bastion. Some amazing features. Okay. Now, what are the requirements to create the virtual machine? Oh, sorry, not the virtual machine, but the Azure Bastion. As we have already deployed one, we need Azure Virtual Machine. We need a dedicated subnet. Must have at least slash 27 DR slash 27 CIDR CIDR. Minimum of 32 addresses because it also accommodates scaling as we have seen under the standard when we were trying to deploy it. So it is almost there. Got the one public IP address. Deployment is in progress. You can see under the input, bash, we selected basic. Under the standard, it was giving us scale units. This is the scalability that it provides, number of units. That's what I'm talking about. That slash 27 is the requirement for the subnet, dedicated subnet. Okay. Now, a public IP address is needed in Azure Portal access. And of course, it has two pricing tier. There was one developer, which is we understand, but basic and standard is something that we opt for in our prod non-prod environment, and both has their own features. Uh, most of them overlaps, but there are certain features which is only provided by the standard. I'll show you that quickly. Come here. So while it is deploying, let me go to the documentation. Now, in this documentation, if I come here at the top, click here, Azure Bastion, you can see these are the SKUs, developer, basic, and standard. Basic and standard, if you see, most of them is yes, but this is no. So if you choose basic, you cannot connect to Linux VM using RDP and connect to Windows VM using SSH. But in standard, it supports. You cannot customize inbound port in basic, but in standard you can. Host scaling, standard supports, and the other like upload, download files, shareable link, audio, VM audio output supported by both, but they connect to VMs through IP address because maybe you do not have the DNS in place properly. So standard can help you there. All right. So there are multiple features as per your requirement. You can opt for basic and standard. There is a difference in the pricing as well. Now, quickly, I wanted to show you something because just remind me when I was going through these features like Kerberos authentication, shareable links. So these are some advanced features on Azure Bastion. If I could just show you, if it is there, see, shareable link false, Kerberos false, disable copy paste false because we were using basic. But what are these options? Let's quickly go through these options. All right, so there are certain advanced options in Azure Bastion, okay? And we are going to talk about these options one by one. So the first option is copy and paste. As you can easily understand, this setting controls whether user can use clipboard operations like copy and paste between their local machine and the remote machine hosted through Azure Bastion. This can be useful for transferring text or code snippets, but may be restricted in sensitive environment to prevent data leakage. You can simply understand this by like for developers or administrators who need to quickly move configuration settings or commands between their local environment and the Azure virtual machines. So you can enable copy and paste, increase the productivity there. Then there is another advanced configuration, which is connection through IP or IP based connection, as we have seen already in the SKU comparison. Standard support this IP based, which simply means allow this setting allow Azure Bastion to support connection to the VM using an IP address rather than requiring a DNS name. Simple enough to understand. So you can take this example. Well, this is particularly useful in scenarios where DNS configuration are not feasible or when operating with an isolated network environment. We have seen that, right? Maybe in a development environment where DNS might not be fully set up or in temporary deployments, enabling IP-based connections allow users to continue accessing virtual machine without needing fully qualified domains, and they can do their work. Maybe they're just doing the development work. So IP-based connection. If you want this kind of feature, you need to go for the standard SKU. Then we have Kerberos auth. Yes. Kerberos authentication setting enables the authentication of RDP sessions using the Kerberos protocol, which is a more secure method of authentication. We've been using that from ages. That uses tickets to prove identity to nodes on a network like Windows AD. So, in environments that require stricter security measures, such as financial institution or government systems where identity verification and session security are paramount, enabling Kerberos authentication ensures that RDP sessions are more secure and less prone to interception or unauthorized access. Just wanted to show you something here. If I go to documentation, concept, if I could find something, Bastion settings, Kerberos authentication right here. You can see there are certain considerations if you're going for Kerberos. What Kerberos settings can be configured in Azure only and not with native client. VMs migrated from on-premises to Azure aren't currently supported for Kerberos. So there are certain considerations that you need to think before you choose this option. Changes to DNS server aren't currently supported for Kerberos. If additional DC are added, Bastion will only recognize the first DC. So it supports, but there are certain considerations. You need to check that. And we always check all the prereq consideration before we apply any services because changes are there all the time. Okay. I hope it is deployed now. Okay, it's still okay. Go to the resource. So this is my Bastion. All right. If I go to configurations, you can see these are the configurations we are talking about, copy and paste, IP based Kerberos. So let's quickly go through another one, native client support. Fourth, native client support. So what is native client support? Well, this setting allows users to connect to Azure Bastion hosted VMs using native RDP SSH client instead of relying solely on the web-based client in the Azure portal. This can provide a more seamless and integrated experience for users who prefer using native tools. Now, before I show you how it actually connects, let me turn on few of the Azure virtual machines that I have so that we can connect to or try to connect to them. Start. All right, cool. Now, there is something interesting called shareable link. What it is? Well, as the name says, shareable link. This allows Azure Bastion users to generate a time-limited secure link that can be used by others to access specific VM without needing their own Azure portal credentials. So that's how it can work, just in time kind of feature. This feature must be used carefully to ensure that it doesn't compromise security, of course. So in scenarios where contractor or an external auditor needs temporary access to a VM, a shareable link can provide controlled and limited access without the need to provision full Azure credentials or permanently adjust firewall rules. So these are few advanced options that offers Azure Bastion, and we can achieve certain other aspects of our security. Now, quickly go through the security aspect of Azure Bastion. Well, we've been talking about security aspect as of now, along with the other aspects. Let me show you quickly. If I go to this documentation, And if I try to find out something really interesting, okay, okay, Bastion settings, shareable link. That's what I'm talking about. See, you need to go to configuration, shareable link, click here, but that I've already showed you, but we need standard for this. Once you click here, add, select the VMs that you want your third party or your vendor or your contractor that they need to access. Select those VM and give them the link, shareable link. This is how it works. See? Anyways, let's get back to our topic, which is more like security aspect. A lot of things, features we talked about, what it is we talked about, advanced features we talked about. But now it's time for something which is really important, just to uh, connect the dots and get back to the security aspects or the benefits in the architecture or Azure architecture from the security aspect of Azure Bastion. So, as we have mentioned earlier, the very first thing, which is no public IP required on VMs. So, which means we have a security benefit. Each public IP address assigned to VM can be a potential entry point for attackers, right? So by using Azure Bastion, VMs do not need public IPs. Instead, all RDP, SSH traffic is routed through the Bastion host, which is hardened and managed by Azure. So that's how it secured the environment, first point. And in an Azure landing zone, which is typically designed with a focus on scalability, security, and compliance, reducing the public facing footprint by eliminating public IPs on VMs minimizes the attack surface significantly. And all those logging and auditing from one single point, centralized management. For example, in Azure Landing Zone, we have a hub network where we have all the shared services, or we may have the Azure Bastion there, and all the information is there, who is logging and what he's doing, right? So that's another security benefit from logging perspective, from the management perspective. And then we need a separate subnet, as we have already talked about. So what security benefit it provides? Well, because it has its own dedicated subnet, which name as Azure Bastion subnet. We have already seen that in the Azure portal. This isolates it from the Azure resources, right? So it provides the isolation, isolates it. Okay, segmentation, or you can say. Okay. This segregation ensures that any compromise of other services does not directly impact the Bastion host or other way around. Okay. So, in the context of an Azure landing zone, isolation aligns with the best practices for network design, ensuring that critical control services like Bastion or Azure Bastion are segregated from application workloads. This helps in maintaining clear boundaries and control layers within the cloud environment. So, another security benefit right here: segregation, isolation, and clear boundaries. Now, because everyone is going through one Bastion, which has all those logging and auditing. So Bastion provides a centralized point for accessing all VMs in the virtual network and allows for stricter security controls and easier auditability of access logs, right? All right. So, and of course, these no public IP and it is secure, because let me show you one more thing. You can easily understand the security aspect of it. For example, this VM we need to connect. Come on. If I click on connect, connect through Bastion, right? You connect through Bastion, and here how you can connect. You just need to type the pass username for this Windows VM1, if I remember it correctly, and the password, and connect. You don't see Bastion here. That's all. That's all. You don't even have the access what public IP the Bastion is, how many VMs they are running at the backend. It's a PaaS service, right? You simply click on connect and you will get the connection in your browser. Okay. Though you can see it is connected, allow, and that's how you get the connection on your browser, SSL. So it is also secure, RDP. And if you go to your Bastion right here, this is your Bastion, all those logs, metrics, activity log, everything is here. And that's how secure it is. Okay. Now, yeah, that's all about Azure Bastion. All the security aspect. If we need to conclude the security aspect, just to keep in mind, because this is the security specialist series, so need to have extra on security aspects. So very first thing is no public IP address, no PIP, first benefit. Second, SSL on RDP or SSH. Third, uh, logging and auditing from single place. Fourth, centralized management. Fifth, supports peering. So no need to have multiple bastion going on. Okay. Uh, and what the important part is, isolation, and you can say segmentation. So these are some important security aspect that we get when we think for Azure Bastion in our Azure architecture instead of going with the legacy methods. And this is a recommended way. You always go with the Azure Bastion when you are creating your Azure architecture for your workloads, for your customers' workload. And thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.